Hey, Run and Try Bike community. Welcome to our 143rd episode of the Fireside Chat on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Today, we are going to be joined by Liz Myers, who is the host of the podcast Tribe of Runners and recently set the course record for the Across Florida 269 hours, 7 minutes, and 51 seconds. Before we bring Liz on, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. We have 8 shows, which means there is something there for everyone. From shows like this one with Q&A conversations, to laughter on our Fiery Embers and Food Fight Friday, to music in our What's in Your Earbuds show. There is something there for you. Check it out, Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. So let's bring Liz onto the show and talk to her about her journey in running, being a podcast host, her rookie season in ultra running, being a mom, and a million other things that she's been doing. So, Liz, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Now I get to chat with you and be on the other side. I get to ask you questions.
Yes, I know. This is the worst part, having to do this. I like to be the one asking all the questions, guiding the conversation, not being pressured into all the questions.
So do you find that when you're the guest as opposed to being the host, you get more nervous, or are you more nervous as a host because you're like, I got to get this right. I want to be perfect, blah, blah, blah.
No, I think I'm more nervous being a guest because when I'm the host, it's mine, if I mess up, if I slip up, it's okay. It's my podcast. It's fine. I messed up. It's not a big deal. And when I'm on someone else's, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Or I should have said it this way. So you overanalyze way too much, or at least I do.
All right. So this is just a conversation as if we just finished a run and we're getting brunch and drinking some coffee or tea, whatever it is that you do after a run.
Sounds
Before
wonderful.
we get into the hard hitting Pulitzer Prize winning journalistic questions I have listed here, here's our break the ice question.
Okay.
Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yes, all day long.
Oh, good God. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. This show has been fun.
Oh, yes. I am the weirdo. I love pineapple on pizza. I do, honest, my pizza of choice is pineapple and bacon every day, all day, every day.
You see, you just proved my point. Nobody really likes pineapple on pizza because it always has to be accompanied by something else. Bacon, jalapenos, Canadian bacon, ham, something. It's not, very rarely is there a person who goes, pineapple on pizza, and that's it. Don't put any accompaniment to it.
It needs to have a little something with it. I do agree to that 100%.
Which means you don't like it. I'm going to put that in the win category for me.
Okay. Well, I'll let it slide.
In the introduction, I called it your rookie season in ultra running. And the reason why I called it that is because you finished your first 50, 100, and 200 mile races in 2024. But before we get into discussing those ultra runs, what got you into running in general?
My sister. So way back in the day, I had played sports all throughout high school. I was always active. I was the typical kid that running was a punishment when you were playing sports. I played basketball and we had to run drills and it was miserable. So when I got out of high school and got into being an adult and learning myself, I would strength train and I would mountain bike and road bike a lot, but never into running. It was not my thing. It was always miserable. Didn't like it. And then my sister was really big into running. She was training for 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. And she got me into running. I was living with her at the time. This was around COVID. So getting outside was just wonderful. We were outside a lot and she was like, why don't you try running? And I said no for the longest time. And then randomly she was like, come on. And I was like, oh, okay. So we went out and ran. And for the first month or so, I think our running adventure started by us running a mile as fast as we could and to see who would be faster. So it was the best training, of course not. And then eventually we ran a virtual 5K. Then our first ever race was a 10K in person and I was hooked. I signed up for a half marathon right after that, signed up for a marathon right after half marathon. And then I kind of did some triathlon training and then eventually found ultra and, have stuck with ultra since.
We'll get into ultras in a minute. What was it about running that got you hooked? You said I was hooked on it. So what was it? The hard with the accomplishment, the fitness you were seeing? What was the hard? What was the thing that got you hooked?
I think it was the mental thing. Yeah, that time I'd only run 4 miles and I was like, there's no way I can run 6 miles, like a 10K. There's no way. And I remember being at the start line with my sister and be like, I don't think I can do this. And then you start and it's so exciting because there were so many people there. It's my first race and everyone's, bumping into each other. I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like, it's weird. And then the more I was going, I was like, I'm 4.5 miles in. Like, I can do this. And that, then like a half marathon happened, and it's like seeing people finish that marathon. I'm like, well, that would be incredible. Who does things like that? And then I did that, and then it's just seeing what I could do. It's at the end of the day, yes, we do race people and it is competitive in that aspect. But like, I've always just wanted to see what I could do mentally and physically. I think always kind of mentally, but like physically, I've learned like, oh, wow, like you're a little better than you thought you were. So, which is also really cool too.
Yeah, I'm competitive as well with myself, similar to what you said there. But one thing that I would always say when I was racing Ironman distance when I got off the bike was, you're not passing me. Like, that was the mentality I had to have
Mhm.
to keep me moving forward when I was on the run course of an Ironman event. Do you have a mantra or a handful of mantras when you're out there and it starts to get hard and you're like, yeah, I need to repeat this to myself so I can keep moving forward?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch. One of them I've stolen from Sally McRae's, like the Pass Gap and Berry. Like that was in my first like competitive-ish race is when I've like used that and was like, this is amazing. Like seeing someone passing them and like, I'm gonna gap and bury you. Like, and using that as like that was like my first like real mantra that I remember. And then I'm kind of mean to myself. But I'm also like funny at the same time. Like I have this like thing I always tell myself is like I'm a bad bitch. So like
Yep.
I am always when in middle of a race, if like I'm needed, like I'm just telling myself like you're a bad bitch, like let's go. And I use this so much during my 200, which is really really funny. But like I just like it's that something with that. I don't know why. Like it just lights a fire under my butt and I get going. But those are like my two go to. I would say for sure.
Have you ever had a moment when you're using the phrase pass, gap, and bury when the person you're passing, hopefully gapping and burying, comes back?
I haven't, not
Oh,
yet.
I
It's
have.
going to, and it's going to be horrible.
It's
um,
horrendous. Like, I was racing a half marathon, I was in Oklahoma, and I saw a guy up ahead of me, and I wound up catching him, and in my mind, I was like, "Just keep powering through this, get ahead of him as much as you can, and put some separation in there." And I thought I had done it. And then, like, 30 seconds, a minute later, he comes passing me, and it is just horrendously devastating.
I can imagine.
The bounce back from that was so hard.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah. Sadly, I mean, I'm thankful I have not, but, like, I would love it sounds so horrible to say. I would love to experience it because, like, what would I do in that situation? You know what I mean? Like, would I let myself fall? Would I push myself even harder and, go out there? But yeah, as of right now, it has not happened.
I hope it doesn't happen to you. Nobody should experience that defeat.
Yeah. I'm sure it will though. I'm not getting my hopes up in that aspect.
One of the things that I loved about my experience at Racing Cocodona was the leapfrogging with other
Mm.
athletes. And so it's a little different than running a half marathon or a marathon. You're finishing 2, 4, 6 hours, whatever it is. Like, you're going on days for this. So it's really cool to have that sort of leapfrogging scenario there. When you were doing across Florida, or even your first 100 miler at Javelina, were you having experiences in leapfrogging with other athletes that you saw out there?
So, across Florida, I did not because it was only me out there. And
Oh, okay.
I'll explain that in a litlittle. It's a very different type race. But with Javelina, I experienced that almost the whole time. And I honestly like it was Javelina was very different for me because like I got blisters. I had to learn how to run with blisters. So it was like a very big learning curve for me. And I also wasn't going out very hard in this race. It was a training race for the 200, wildly enough to admit that. But
Right.
I didn't want to go out hot and I didn't want to go out hard. And I noticed when I was doing that is like during aid stations. So like I would run in, see someone that I had just passed me, then I would get in and out and go out. And then within a couple miles, maybe they would pass me again. So like it was that leapfrog to like aid station more or less, which was interesting to see. And like in the back of my mind, sometimes I was like, man, if I was running this, like would I be experiencing this? But, Javelina was very different, just because of the blisters. But with Across Florida, it's actually, it's a this year is the last year. Actually, last year was the last year. It was a virtual race. You could do it whenever you wanted. You just had to announce your race date. So it was literally me against myself out there. There was no one
Gotcha.
else that was racing with me. But this year in 2025, it is like a true sanction race, and it's no, I believe it's like November 23rd or something like that.
Gotcha. So that's an interesting setup too from a mental aspect, right?
Oh, yeah.
It literally is you against yourself, whereas in an environment where you have other competitors, you could use that as a way to trick yourself into chasing people down, shall we say? Or since you set the course record, being in first place and trying to stay ahead of the competition, which you can't do if there is nobody else on the course with you.
Yes, exactly. Like, I learned so much and I really did push myself hands down, but at the end of the day, I was like, "Man, if there was other people out there, would I have pushed a little harder?" And I'm sure I would have. The competitiveness in that aspect, I'm sure would have kicked into gear.
So when you were doing this event across Florida by yourself, did you know where you were in relation to the course record? Was the course record something you had set out to do before you took your first step?
Yes. So the original plan, the course record, I believe was 73 hours. And I wanted to like my end all be all goal was sub 70. And then other goal was 75, like somewhere around there. So I had two goals at the end of the day. Truly, no matter what, my first 200, I just want to finish. But in the back of my mind, after looking at my crazy logistics and Excel sheets, I truly thought I could finish sub 70. So, like, if all went well and, nothing really south went down, I figured I could do it. So, having that in mind, I went out there. Everything went really well. I had my ups and my downs. The roller coaster was real. And then around mile, I think 160, like the last 40 miles got really hard for me. And that's when I was like, I don't want to know. Like I was stopped paying attention. I had actually accidentally paused my watch. So like I couldn't see the true data. And I eventually took off my watch because I was just so mad that I didn't have the true data in my watch. And like looking at it kept making me even madder. So I remember like occasionally checking my phone, but like not being truly obsessed with where I was. I was just such a low point at that moment that I just kept trying to move and not focus on where I was, what I was going. And the last, I think it was like 9 or 12 miles is when I was told, if you push it, you're going to do sub 70. And I was like, no, like I'll be maybe 72. Like I'm fine with that. Like 72. And they're like, no, 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 you still have 70. And I was like, let's go. Like I mind you, I didn't run then. But I was pushing really, really hard. Like I was walking a really fast walk. And then at the end, I just took off and, sprinted it in towards the end, like we all do when we want something real bad.
So for me, at 100 miles, my mantra is I don't want to see a second sunrise. That's how I
Mm,
motivate myself to keep moving. I don't want to be out here to see a second sunrise. I'd like to see the second sunrise knowing that I have finished.
mhm.
So as you're getting into this scenario, right? 4 days, is it like, okay, I don't want to see that fifth day?
I honestly wasn't there, and that's so wild to say, but I'm sure if I saw the sunrise, I'd have been like, "Oh my gosh, again," but at that moment, I was truly in such a bad mindset, like, I just was so worried about everything else other than what I was doing, which was actually running that race. Like, I was, "Am I disappointing my crew? Like, I can't believe I'm not pushing harder. I should be able to do this. Like, this is," all the negative talk towards myself and not really paying attention to, like, I had a pacer that was beside me that I should have used a lot better. You know what I mean? I had the crew that was there, and it's just, oh, it got so in my head and down in the dumps kind of, that I was not paying attention. Like I didn't know what time of day it was. I didn't know I wasn't aware that the sun was about to rise. I knew it was coming, but I wasn't too sure. So like at that point, I think I was so just down in the dumps, like that thing didn't pop up.
So we talked about 10Ks and half marathons, and we've now been talking about across Florida and Javelina. But why go after ultras? Like, why not stay in that marathon and possibly shorter to go faster type of event? What drew you to going into the 50K, 50 mile, 100 mile, 200-mile distance?
A few things, honestly. I would first say like the trail aspect. I love trail running, and I know there are shorter races in trails now. It's not very common, but the trail, like getting out on the trails, I thought that was awesome. And I've always said like I'm not fast. I don't have a very good time. Like I've never went out and raced a marathon. I've always just nice and slow going out and enjoying myself and like going to see what I can do. And like I feel like in ultras is when I get to that point in my mind where I'm like, this kind of stinks. Like, am I going to just stop or am I going to keep going? So that, like I continue to push that. And I know people can get that way in a marathon, like with pushing speeds, even like 10Ks and 5Ks, like we can make them harder, but I don't really like sprinting. So, the nice and easy, and I get to eat on the course. Like it's great. It's wonderful.
I've said this many a time. I am more of a candle than a match. Like,
Yes.
give me 200, 100-mile races over a 5K any day. I mean, I know it sounds odd to say I'd rather run for 24 hours than for 24 minutes, but 5Ks hurt, man.
Oh,
Like, no,
I
thank
agree.
you.
I agree. I love that. I've never heard that before, and I'm gonna have to steal it. I love it.
Trademark,
Yeah.
US government trademark.
I'll make sure I say I got it from you 100%.
Me and Sally McRae in Liz
Yes.
Meyer's notebook.
Yes, yes,
Not
all
bad
the good
company.
all the good things.
I know that you were at Cocodona
Mhm.
earlier in 2024. I've got to make sure I comment that it's the year since we're at the beginning of
Oh.
2025. So in 2024, you were at Cocodona and you were crewing. Is that correct?
Yep, crew and pacing, yep.
So was being at Cocodona the thing that gave you the idea to run a 200, or had the 200 always been planned and this was a great way to get some insight into what you have to do from not training, but executing, aid stations, that kind of stuff?
Yes, so it was already planted. Honestly, the first ultra, like, big race that I ever saw, aside from, like, a 50K, was the Across Florida 200, which is wild, but I do live in Florida, so, like, it popped up, and I'm like, "This is pretty cool." And then I kind of like planned 2024 knowing in potentially in 2025 I wanted to run the 200. Obviously, I ran the 200 already. So that kind of changed. And I did the 200 in 24 because I wanted to run it as a virtual race, not as like a true sanction race. So that's why I honestly shoved it in the back of 2025 or 2024 compared to doing it actually in this year. But I'm coached by Joe Corsi on the Everyday Ultra, and he had mentioned he was looking for some crew and pacers. And I was like, well, I want to run a 200. I need to go learn as much as possible. And I knew I would learn so much being on the outside and looking in. And it was honestly my first crewing and pacing ever. So like I learned
Oh,
so much so quickly. And I was the crew chief, which is wild enough. But I'm super organized, very all my I's and T's are dotted, all that good stuff, cross and all that. So like I felt very confident going in. I knew I was going to learn on the move, and I really, really did. But I felt amazing. I learned so much, and then I got to use all of that knowledge for my 200, which was awesome.
yeah. So it was really a true rookie season for you. If going
100%.
out and pacing and crewing for the first time was in 2024 to then execute 50, 100, 200-mile races. Um, what was that like in terms of the expedited path, right? Some people will tell you 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, right? Just the progression and
Mhm.
take your time doing it and everything else. For you, what was it about this idea that I'm going to run a 50, 100, and a 200 all in the same year?
Mhm. So I have to say, truly never planned to do the 200 at the end of the year. I made that decision honestly after Badwater, which I should know when that was. I think it was June or July ish.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
crewed out there as well.
Before you keep going on,
Yeah.
is Badwater crewing not one of the best experiences you could possibly ever have?
100%. I learned so much, and, like, it was such a different type of race, like, it was amazing, 100%. I'm going back this year too, I cannot wait. It's amazing, 100%.
Yeah, like for me, I've crewed and paced at Badwater myself. I don't have a desire to put my name in to do the race particularly, but if there are people out there that are like, "Hey, if you have experience and you want to come crew and pace me," I would absolutely do it all over again. It was just an amazing experience out there.
Yeah, no, it's just different, and so many people are like, "Is it really that different?" I'm like, "It is, I don't know how to explain it, but it's great." It was a wonderful time. I learned so much, especially because it's just a whole different type of ball game when it comes to crewing and pacing.
Yeah. So back to the expedited experience of going from 50 to 100 to 200 in the same
Yep.
year.
Yep, so my original plan was, like, 50 to 100. I wanted to knock out those 2 big races, and then in 2025, do the 200 end of year was my whole thought process. And then, life happened, and then this race got bought out, or it has a new owner now, so he made it a sanctioned race that in November. So I was like, I've always envisioned myself doing this race is kind of like an FKT because you can go out there and do it
Yep.
whenever you want. You have the map and you just are, you start time and then as soon as you finish, you finish. So I was very on the fence, like, do I shove it in the end of this year? And at the end of the day, like I really thought about it, I'm like, this means so much to me to do it this way. I would want to. I double checked that everything it was doable, wasn't too crazy. And then I learned as much as I possibly could. Like you know, getting people on my podcast to ask them questions about 200s, talking to other people about 200s, reading all the things I can, talking to anybody and everybody that will tell me every and anything I can. Like, and that's what crewing really did for me too. So last year I crewed and paced as much as I could with my busy schedule and just learned as much. I took in everything I could, and it truly just gave me such a brighter view of everything that I felt very confident going into this 200. And then honestly, like I had a training, like a makeshift training camp at home. And after that, like I was like, there's no doubt I'm going to finish this, but now it's how fast can I finish it? So like, I was just, everything just lined up really, really well. And I was so pumped for it.
In all of the things that you did in 2024, what was the thing that was the hardest for you to manage to accomplish?
Um, oh man, that's tough. There was a lot of things. I would honestly like hands down the 200 was the hardest. There was a lot of planning went into it only because I didn't know, like, there was no aid stations there. It was literally my crew and everything that I had. So, like, trying to plan food for me, trying to plan food for them. I had a big crew. And then the pacers that I had out there, trying to make sure they had things they needed, even though I knew they were bringing their own things. Like, I'm just like, so much planning went into that. And that was like just very eye opening. I learned really quick how hard all of that is. And then on the outside, like, that race was, I mean, it was the hardest this year for sure.
So then was the hard part letting go, allowing your pacers and your crew to handle giving you food, giving you
Mhm.
liquids, being at the stops when they tell you to, as opposed to being a person who wants to control it all? So is that the
Oh,
hard part?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And, like, everyone will say, like, "Yes, you're a control freak." Like, I am, but I do know, like, there's times to let things go and, like, just go. But with this race, it was so different in that aspect because, like, there was no other people out there. Like, it was us. I did have a connection with, a local here named Joe Miller that, like, at the drop of the dime would have came out and helped me if I was in a pinch or my crew needed something, which was amazing. He is an amazing guy, but, it's so different because there's no other runners out there. It's just you, and you're trying to get to point A to point B as quick as possible. So it was very, very different. And this is a big endeavor, it's a whole bunch of people in one car for a few days, and it's a lot on them too. So I was very worried about them, thinking I was disappointing them a lot, which was really hard for me. Like I always wanted to make everyone proud, and at the end of the day, I know I did, but oof, it was brutal.
What was the strategy with regards to the crew? So, and I'll give you why I'm asking this question. When I crewed at Badwater, we would take the van, we'd drive 2 miles down the road. The runner would get to the van, do your thing, drive the van 2 miles down the road, runner would do your thing. So, what was the strategy for you to execute this 200 with your crew?
So with this actual race, there are suggested now there's going to be actual aid stations, but there were suggested stops for aid stations. And so they would go, and it was anywhere from 4 to I think 10 to 12 miles was my longest. They were pretty short, very, very short towards the end, but I kind of wanted it that way. And everyone's like, you should have pushed it a little further. But at the end of the day, that was like my safety blanket of having them every 4-ish miles. But I'd come in, they would take care of me, I would go, and they would go to the next aid and wait. But at one point, I had 2 vehicles, and they also would drive the Pacers vehicles everywhere. So they, like, went above and beyond, but it was just, like, at the end of the day, when that morning started, I was like, "Listen, I'm gonna start running. You guys just get to each aid station. I don't wanna know not how, I don't know wanna know why, whatever." I was like, "I trust that you'll do it, but please don't ever miss an aid station." And then they missed the first aid station. But
Oh, no.
it was like, by like 30 seconds, like I called them, I'm like, "I'm here." And they're like, "You're going way too fast." I'm like, "I'm really not." But, so it was kind of my fault. But yeah, after that, they didn't miss an aid station the whole time. So it was great.
What was the food that you just could not get enough of while you're running for 4 days?
Well, it was what I ended with, and that was a McDouble and a Coca-Cola. I drank so much Coke, and I don't drink soda ever except for during races. But the double McDouble and a Coca-Cola at every aid station, I would eat one and drink one. It was wild. It was so crazy.
It's so awesome. I remember at Cocodona, telling my crew chief that when we got into Prescott, I just wanted an Impossible Whopper. Like I had to have one, and she brought me two plus Klondike bars. And so my joke has always been like when people ask, "What would you do for a Klondike bar?" The answer is I'd run 250 fucking miles for one.
Hey, I mean, everyone has their weird thing about what they'll do for a contact bar.
It tasted like heaven. Like there
Oh,
was nothing better in that moment than that Klondike bar. I'm telling you.
that is so funny. I didn't actually eat any ice cream, and now I'm like, maybe I should have. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like at a marathon where you're running top speed for as long as you possibly can in comparison to a 50 mile or a 100 miler, especially on trails where there's going to be hiking and walking and involved, like your nutrition consumption is so different, right?
mhm,
Like, you're eating potatoes at ultras, you're eating Whoppers or McDoubles or just all kinds of different things. And I have to remind people when they get into the 100, I'm like, think about if you just sat on your couch all day.
mm,
You're going to be eating all kinds of foods. Now, add in this exercise, right? This movement that you're going to be doing. You have to eat. Like you have to constantly eat. There's no way around it. When you're racing, did your nutrition change between Javelina and across Florida because now you're going double the distance? So, were there changes? Did you learn from Javelina to adopt into across Florida?
mhm. So, honestly, I will say, like, I'm very fortunate where, like, I've had my stomach kinda go south before across Florida, but never, like, to the point where it was really bad. I've, like, just kind of adjusted things or not ate something and, like, kind of felt better, and then across Florida, I actually, like, threw up everywhere, and I've never done that in a race, but I got really nauseous, and I kinda stayed nauseous throughout, after probably, like, mile 70, and I'm not too sure. I was consuming more than normal, but I had kind of trained that way, and I don't know, I have an assumption that I was maybe drinking a little too much fluids, that, like, it was just a little too much in the stomach, because it was relatively chillier than normal and here in, the wonderful world of Florida. But I would say like the big differences is, and like I did prep for this, but like I did eat a little more. So like I was roughly like 65 grams of carbs an hour. And then I went to probably like 75, 80, like really close to 80, maybe 90 grams. And I felt so good. I was doing really good, but I just think I had a little too much fluid. So like I would kind of teeter totter on not feeling really well. And then I threw up once and I was great. And I was so ready to go. And then I did occasionally have some like I just would kind of stop eating and then people would like get me to eat random things and continue to go.
It's interesting, and I think this is a perfect example of why these sports and athletes need to test themselves as opposed to reading online. Oh, Liz took in 90 grams of carbs, which is approximately 360 calories, right? And then
Mhm,
whatever else you're consuming. Like I, as an athlete, when I first started, I was eating 100 to 200 calories an hour. Now I'm consuming close to 600 calories an hour. I've
right.
just learned, right, and
Mhm,
processed and trained my gut to be able to do all of this stuff.
mhm.
And so when you're talking about nutrition, especially you as a coach, I have to imagine it's like, this is individualized. Here's what
Oh,
I
yeah.
can do. Here's what, you need to figure out how to do it as well. Um, because we're all so different. Would you
Oh, yeah.
agree?
100%. And I can't tell you, like and I don't get me wrong, for my 200, I had a very high-ish carb, like, race strategy, but all of like, so many people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I wanna be high carb." I'm like, "Well, how much are you eating?" They're like, "Well, like, maybe a gel an hour." I'm like, "We have to work to get higher, like, we can't just jump up there." And then people realize, like, you really not everyone needs 90 to 100 grams of carb an hour, 4 or 5, 600 calories an hour. It's dependent. And some people work a little better on like that medium calorie
Mhm.
intake, and it's everyone is so different. Just like running and like how you run and the reason you run, and it's all different. We're all different and everyone is so different. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we could all accept each other for being different, like it'd
Mhm,
be so much better because and we can all learn from each other, right? Like this idea that you went from 60, 65 grams of carbs up to 80 to 90 grams of carbs is intriguing to me, right? Like this idea that you progressed through
mhm,
that process as opposed to having a rigid belief that no, you should only take 90 grams an hour or only 60 grams an hour.
mhm.
This is why you listen to podcasts. This is why
Oh,
you
yeah.
read the information that's on the internet so that you can learn and adapt and use your training,
Mhm.
practice this stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You mentioned the weather in Florida, and which is a perfect segue to this question. You have a pinned post that shows dirt and mud up your leg on your Instagram account.
Mhm.
So if you got to choose weather utopia for your next race, what type of weather are you running in? Rain, hot,
Mm.
humid, muddy, ice, snow? What are we looking at here?
I would do muddy. I enjoy it. I really do. Like, it is hard, don't get me wrong, and it's kind of annoying, but I live in Florida, I deal with the humidness all the time, but I also get the mud too, so it's just yeah, I would say mud for sure. Go out there and have a little fun, play in the mud.
Being a pig pen is so much fun, isn't it?
Yes,
Right?
100%.
Like, there isn't a puddle I would not jump in. Like, I wanna splash down in everything. Like, let's
You would
be
love it here.
13 years old again, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, the world is so hard, it's so difficult. If you said today that the sky is blue, inevitably there's some asshole is gonna be like, "No, it's green," or "No, it's yellow," or whatever the, you know, comment is going to be.
Mhm.
But the opportunity to jump up and down in puddles and in
I know.
mud and is j you can't pass it up.
Oh, I know, and it's so crazy. I literally just had a conversation with a client of mine this evening, and he's like, "I like kids love playing in the mud and like why don't we as an adult love go to play in the mud?" I'm like, "Exactly. Like go run in the mud, have fun. It's a trail run. That's what they're for." But it's true and I do enjoy it. It's just nice. It's funny. It's you go out and have fun and you get to relax because at the end of the day you can't run hard through the mud. You got to be careful. So you just go out there and have a good time.
Exactly. So you mentioned that you were on a call with a client. So you are a coach, you're a
Yes.
podcast host,
Yeah.
you're a runner, you're a
Mhm.
mom, you have a day job. How in
Yep.
the hell do you put all this together?
I ask myself that all the time. All the time. It's always like another like, I like to write. I love to write. I have a blog, and, like, the end of that last year, like, I really let that go because I just had so much going on, and so this year, I'm like, "Listen, you need to write more, like, you're very passionate about it, write more." So, like, now I'm in the place of, like, how can I juggle everything else? I need to make sure I get this in, but I'm like I've mentioned before, like, I'm very organized. I do time block my life away. It's very important for me, especially, like, being a coach and having coaching calls and, working with the podcast, setting up calls for that, and, I had mentioned to you previously before this, like, I am transitioning to get out of my day job. So, like, I worked for the past 4 years as at a golf course as a assistant superintendent, and I've like slowly kind of get myself out of there. So like now I only work 2 days, 3 days a week there, and I'm hoping to be out of there within like a month or 2, and then, take on coaching and like everything else that I kind of have like brewing up, and then just, fully dive into coaching, being a part of like a great team, having the podcast, writing. I am honestly working on a book too. So like I really want to like focus on my book, and there's just so many things that I want to do, and I'm like trying to focus on all for me this year. You know what I mean? Like I loved my job as at the golf course. Like it was a great job and I did love it, but like I wasn't passionate. I was good at it, but not passionate. But I'm so passionate about everything running. And I know it drives my fiance crazy when I talk about this, but like she's like, you just light up when you talk about running. When you talk about people that run, like this is where you need to be. And I'm super, thankful to have her to support me. But it's this year, and we briefly talked about like last year and this year, like I'm just all in. I'm trying to go all in.
What do you do to get away from running so that you can and the reason why I asked that is earlier I was exchanging messages on Razik's Substack Running Sucks 101. And I mentioned how my goal this year is 2 to 3 times a week to read for 20 to 30 minutes, get away from social media, get away
Mhm.
from the company. And he asked me if I was facing burnout. And I was like, no, I just want to be able to put stuff away and
Mhm.
avoid burnout happening. So what do you do to get away from running and coaching and podcast hosting? What are your outside curricular activities?
So I do read. I am a nerd. I have like a stack of books behind me. I have a whole bunch of books here. I also write, even though it is geared towards running, like to me, it's a kind of a different outlet in that aspect. I have two puppies. They're just over a year old. So they're very hands-on. They take a lot of my time and energy. And like that is just, like we take them to the dog park, we walk them a lot. They're very high energy. And then like every like Wednesday night is family night. And we've slacked a little here recently, but like I want that to be very important. So like I don't do anything. Like I'm not on my phone, I'm not on social media. We watch a movie and hang out and then like, trying to spend even if it's breakfast or dinners with my family just to like not be on the phone, not do anything like getting specificity or having specificity with certain things outside of running is like what I try to do. But reading, family time, my dogs, writing, I think that's it.
That's a lot. That's plenty. Like I'm a big fan of telling people go outside and touch grass. Like just get
Yeah.
away from it all, even if it's for 20, 30 minutes. It's just a great recharger. I started writing a Substack at the end of last year. It's once a month, and put in there like 2 or 3 things, maybe 4 things that moved me during the month, things that
Awesome.
made me think, and what I love about it is it makes me stay present in what I'm doing, right?
Mhm.
So I'm talking to you, we're live on this podcast. I cannot be present if I'm thinking about 100 other things that need to get done, right? And the reason why I get to stay even more present is because I'm like, there might be a moment that Liz says something that becomes part of the Substack down the road.
Mhm.
And I think it's benefited me in my relationships with our advertising and marketing partners, with our guests on our show, because I am here, I am listening to what you are saying, I am focused on the moment I am in, as opposed to thinking about what happened yesterday or what's coming up tomorrow.
Mhm.
Do you have a working title for your book since you mentioned it?
I I can't say it. I can't, it gives it away, so I won't say it. But I do have to go off of what you just said. So you had mentioned like with your Substack, by the way, I need to find you. I've been slacking on Substack so much, so I need to get back on it. But you had mentioned like you're trying to be present. So one thing that I've been doing, and I've been doing it since about July, is I actually have a remarkable. So I write within my remarkable. I do journal a lot and like write out my thoughts, but one thing that I got from Ryan Holiday, who I love, and I love like all of his advice and philosophy and stoic. I love all of it. But he writes like one good thing down a day. So like and you write it for 5 years. So like for 2024, July, I think I started, and then I will go until, 5 years later, but like I write one important thing that like really stuck out to me. So like it could have been the silliest thing. But like today will be being on this podcast because like I'm having such a good time and like I love doing this stuff. You know what I mean? So like that'll be like my one thing that like I want to write down. So next year when I say like, oh my God, yeah, I remember that conversation I had with Jason on this podcast. Like it was so amazing. And it's just like the little things like that. And that has really made me be present within like the last 7 months. So I love that you're doing that too. That's so cool.
Don't just get a highlighter out and highlight the day and the conversation too, so that when you go back 5 years from now, you'll be like, oh yeah, there it is.
I remember this. I remember it. Yeah, but no, it's like trying to do things like that I think is so key, especially with someone like us that we're so consumed in everything. Like I guarantee you half of the things I've written in here are not about running. They're about
Yeah.
like little things throughout my day. Mind you, like running across Florida and having that course record is in here because that was amazing. But like
Of
there's other
course.
things. There's so much more to life than running. And like I've really brought that out and doing that practice. So it's been great.
Yeah, in my Substack, I've written about, this is going from memory, I've written about having watched the documentary, The Evolution of the Black Quarterback, and the impact it had on me from a civil rights movement. I've written about The Starting Five, which is
Mhm.
a Netflix docuseries also, where they follow 5 NBA players and behind the scenes. And um, I wrote about the book I bought, Unfuck Your Brain, and the impact that's had on me from a mental
Mhm.
health standpoint. The 2024 New York Mets and my connection. My mother passed away in 2024. And so the Mets were my favorite team, and she would watch it to me. And so there was the connection there. And none
Mm.
of it has to do with running, right? Every now
Yeah.
and again, I think there's a mention of run, try, bike in there, but it's really outside of running. A lot of
Mhm.
that stuff takes place, which leads me to my next question before we head into our rapid fire food questions is how has running helped you outside of running, helped you be a better mom, be a better uh, dog parent, be a better employee, podcast host? I know coach is in running, but you're running. How has it helped you and outside of your own world of running?
Yeah, and this I feel like it's such a fully loaded question because like it's truly changed my life and not only for like I'm a better person because I run more or like I get that steam off, but like I get to sit and really talk to myself and like have conversations that I probably wouldn't have in a normal day because I'd be so consumed by everything else going on in the world that like, you don't get that time to like go out and run and think. And like I've learned to think things out and like go for a run sometimes when, something's going on and just think about things and like learning to just have this like thing that means so much to me and that I care about and like I protect that because it's something that is very important to me and I want it to be a part of my life forever, not just for now. So like keeping everything in line. So I'm personally taking care of myself physically, what I eat, what I drink. Like I've officially been 1 year sober, and I did that because I just wanted to not have to wake up and not feel good the next morning. So little things like that, like the smallest things, like it's just made me a really, really good person on so many aspects.
Yeah, I have been sober. I have not had an ounce of alcohol in 12 or 13 years. Like I can't
That's
even remember.
incredible.
It's been so long.
That's so
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and it was abused. I abused alcohol. There's no doubt about it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, at the time I was racing Ironman,
Mhm,
like the idea of getting on a bike for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours hungover
mhm,
was awful. Like it was just awful. And I was like, what if you actually trained and you didn't have a hangover? Like, what would
mhm,
that feel like? And I quit cold turkey. And I stopped drinking right then and there. And it did change my life. Like you see things clearer, life
mhm,
becomes a little bit brighter. Um, and honestly, the health benefits are tremendous, right? And so I'm
mhm.
in agreement with you on that. And so congratulations to you on your 1 year soberversary as well.
Thank you.
Last question. Let's talk hair. I
Oh.
don't have any, and you have some of the coolest hair in the biz.
Oh, I knew this was coming.
What's the secret?
And it's so I don't know if you've noticed, but recently I've only been wearing hats because I'm trying to grow it out because I have like a
Oh
new
no.
hairstyle I'm trying to do. So the hair is a hot mess. But I have so much hair. It's super thick. Obviously, it's shaved. It used to be like just the bun up top. And I would always have it in like a big bun, a little bun. I'd get it cut different times. But I'm currently, I guess you could say, growing out like a full mohawk. And then I'm gonna perm it, and I'm gonna have like crazy hair. I'm gonna see how it goes. If it doesn't go good, I'm just gonna shave it all off. But yeah, that's so I can't. I mean, yeah, it's been in a hat for a few months because I'm trying to let everything grow out.
I love it. As a person who is follically challenged, I'm I'm all in on doing wild, crazy shit with your hair while you have it.
Yeah, I've honestly had the same haircut for like 10, probably 10 years. So I was like, I just think I should change it up. And yeah, so the about the middle, like November, October, November of last year, I was like, I'm just gonna let's start growing it out. And so that's what I've been doing.
I've had the same haircut for the same number of years too.
Oh, I know. Sadly, yours has to stay the same.
Maybe I might get a millimeter length on it, but otherwise, no, it's coming off. What's interesting, right? So growing up, I grew up in the Beverly Hills 90210 era, Brandon and Dylan with their hair, and I had all the gel and all the hairspray and everything else, like all of that stuff. And as I got older and I started balding, I was like, like fighting against it. And then one day I was like, ah, fuck it. And I shaved it off. And it felt so liberating. I was
Oh, I
like,
can
this is so great. I don't have to worry about shit anymore, right? And then your wallet gets a little fatter because you're not spending money on product anymore either.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing to be able to just take the razor and cut it all off. It's such a good feeling.
I can imagine. I felt the same way when I used to have long hair and then I went to short hair. So, like, as a female, I had very long hair and like taking all that hair off and having like the haircut that I felt like made me feel more comfortable as a person was great. It was so liberating. So like I can only imagine.
All right. So before we jump into the rapid fire food questions, where can people find you if they want to follow your journey in ultra running? If they're looking for a coach and they want to hire you, where can they find you?
The easiest thing I would say would be Instagram. I'm super active on Instagram. It's Liz Myers. And you can shoot me a DM. I will talk to you. And then obviously I have my podcast of the Tribe of Runners, and I have an email, the tribe of runners at Gmail. You can always reach out to me there as well if email is a little easier for you. And I would love to chat. Even if you just want to tell me about something crazy going on about your running, I would love to hear it. I'm always looking for interesting people to have on my podcast. So never hesitate to reach out.
There you go. It's at ITSLIZMYERS at
Yes.
It's Liz Myers. All right. You ready for rapid fire food questions?
Yes. I'm going to see how quick I can be.
These are really complicated.
Oh, I'm sure.
We've already handled pineapple on pizza.
Yes.
So, Oreos. Are you a fan of the old school OG Oreo, double stuff, thins, or the cakesters?
The old school.
Yes.
Old school.
And literally old school, right? Chocolate wafer, vanilla frosting in the middle. None of this birthday cake, red velvet, peanut butter, s'mores, nonsensical stuff that they keep pushing out, right?
Yep, plain Jane.
Yes.
Yes.
One thing I will say, though, for all of you traditionalists like me, I did try the blonde ones while I was at Across the Years, and not bad.
They're not bad. I have had them. Yes, I have had them too. Yeah.
Licorice, red or black?
Red.
100%, hands down. No, not even a thought.
Not even a thought. Red all day.
Red Vines or Twizzlers?
Oh, Twizzlers. Twizzlers.
Do you use it as a straw?
Yes, you gotta bite both ends and use it.
You see, kids, we're all 13 years old. No
all day long, yes.
Peeps. Are Peeps a real candy? Are they nothing more than marshmallow covered in glitter dust?
They are 100% a real candy, and they're like one of my favorites.
Oh, no.
Listen, I will announce this to the whole world, which if my mom hears this, she's going to die laughing. So when I was a baby, had a really small head. And so my mom used to call me Pea Head. And then it transitioned into Peep. And so my nickname from when I was a baby until I was about 20 years old was Peep. And I loved Peeps. So it just like always worked out. But I will tell you, you have to open the Peeps and let them get hard. And
this is nonsense. We've been told this so many times. And my response is this. So you want me to take something bad, make it worse, and somehow it's going to be better?
It will be, I promise. Have you tried it?
Yeah, it was terrible. I had one shipped to me from Boston, and that's how it got stale, was in that traveling from one coast to the other, and it was terrible.
I'm telling you, you're missing out. You just don't have that like finesse for it. I don't know.
My taste buds are all screwed up because I don't enjoy stale Peeps.
100%, yes.
So do you get sad after Easter when they all go away?
No, like it's just a nice little like, oh, Peeps are coming. Like they go away and they come. It's fine. I'm really not like a sweets eater. I'm not gonna lie, but I do have quite a few Peeps every year around Easter.
Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
It is 100% a real candy. It's my favorite too. I am not doing too well. No, I love candy corn. It was a staple during my 100 and my 200. I trained with it a whole bunch. I ate so much candy corn.
What all the good stuff that's out there. Candy corn.
Yep. Yeah, it was.
I don't know if you've seen it. I'll have to share it with you. The YouTube short we have when we asked Corey Waltering the question about Peeps.
Okay.
And he answered it. He loves Peeps. He said they're his second favorite candy. And I asked him, so then what's your first favorite candy if Peeps come in second? And he said candy corn. I almost fell out of my chair.
That is hilarious. Yeah, you will have to send me that. That's too funny. No, I think Peeps would have to be a first for me, and then candy corn for sure.
You and Corey Waltering can get together, put a bunch of that shit in the middle of the table, and you guys will not have to fight over it because you like one and he likes the other.
Yeah, and we could share. Like, I'll give him a Peep every once in a while. If he gives me some candy corn, it's fine.
Back to the old bartering days.
Yes,
I'll give you 1 Peep for 4 candy corn.
Yes, 100%.
Creamy or crunchy peanut butter?
Ooh, crunchy.
All right. How do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And before you answer,
okay,
here are the examples. Do you take one slice of bread and put the crunchy peanut butter on it and then put the jelly on top and then bring the other slice over?
Mhm.
Or do you put the crunchy peanut butter on one slice of bread, the jelly on the other, and then smash them together?
Peanut butter on one side, jelly on the other, smash them together.
And then how do you eat it? Are you just, I'm biting it as a whole sandwich? Do you cut it into two rectangles? Do you cut it into two triangles? Do you cut it into four triangles or four squares?
I just eat it as one giant sandwich and like 3 bites and it's probably gone.
I eat mine as four triangles. That's how my mother used to cut it for me.
Mhm.
And nowadays, I eat it with my pinky up because I'm fancy eating little peanut butter and jelly
Look
tapas
at
with the pinky
you.
up. Yeah.
If I had to cut it, it would probably be in a like to
On the
make 2
diagonal.
triangles. Yeah, in a diagonal to make 2 triangles, yeah.
So when you're eating this thing whole, are
Mhm.
you going into the middle or are you going to the corner and eating it across and then across and then across?
I start from the side and, like, hit the crust because the crust is the worst. So, like, I'll take the bite of the crust from the side, then other side, and then, like, to where I have a little bit of crust in my hand and then, like, a big piece, and then I finish that little piece of crust, and I have the rest of the thing to eat, and it's gone. Very meticulous. You gotta save the best for
I
last.
love it. We ask this question all the time, and B short run ultra told me that she cuts it into two rectangles. Her name is Shannon. Cuts it into two rectangles and then turns it and eats it like corn on the cob
Oh,
because she doesn't like the crust and she doesn't want to get her hands dirty from the jelly and stuff sticky.
that is hilarious.
I,
No, I eat the crust. It's not my favorite, but, I do eat the crust, yeah.
are you so go back to the Oreos for a second? Are you a dunker into the milk? Like, how do you eat your Oreos then?
Usually just eat the Oreos. I rarely drink milk. And it's nothing against milk. It's just, we rarely have it at the house. And if we do, I'm like, oh, it's probably expired. So I just eat the regular, like just a few Oreos and eat them up.
So, are you a multiple bite of a single Oreo, or do
Mm,
you eat the whole Oreo?
whole Oreo. Yep.
Yes.
I don't think I ever take a bite of an Oreo. I just put the Oreo in my
No.
mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, you throw it in there like aspirin. Pop.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yep. Exactly.
When you open the package, do you
Mhm.
take out of the middle, or are you going into the corners and eating on the edges before you get to the middle of the package? What are you going to first?
It depends. If I've gotten the container first, which rarely happens. So usually I open the container, it's already been opened. And so like I just eat off of the where but if I was to do it, I would do the center first and then the left side, then the right side. I don't know why. It'd just be weird. But usually like I open it and there's some missing out of the center, there's some missing on the left side, some missing on the right side. So it's all over the place.
Since you're so meticulous, how do you know what the left or the right is? So, like, when you is
We-
it because the peel apart is on the left, and then you know what? Like, how do you know?
yeah. So like when you peel it up and you're looking at it, the flap is in behind, so the left side and the right side.
I'm dying. This is
100%. It's
fantastic.
that's how you when you look at it. Because if you had it the other way, it wouldn't make sense because the flap would be laying towards you, so you'd have to, like, hunt over the flap, and that doesn't make any sense.
I don't know what the podcast awards are, but we've already won it for 2025.
Yes. Oh, how OCD are you when it comes to how you, like, visualize things in your head?
I could talk to people all day, every day about how they eat food. I don't
Oh,
know what it is about my brain, but I am enamored with it. Like, I
oh, that's
love
hilarious.
this idea of how people eat food. Like, I remember the Seinfeld episode where Costanza cuts the Snickers bar with a fork and knife,
Oh, yes,
right?
yes, yes,
Like, it's
yes.
not something I would ever do, but
No.
if you do it, why? Like,
Yeah.
what is it? Like, you don't want to get chocolate on your fingers? Like, what is it? I want to know.
Oh, yeah, that's hilarious. Oh.
Is red velvet cake a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
Ah, I love me some red velvet. It is 100% a red cake or a real cake, 100%. But I love your thought process. Is it chocolate? That's great, 100%. It's so funny.
I think it just depends on where you get it. So if you go to like a Publix, that is just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom. If you
Yes,
go to a bakery and they're
yes,
using alkalized cocoa and all the other stuff, then yeah, that's going to be a much different flavor and a much different
yes.
experience.
No, I can 100% agree that you have to have a really good, like, truly from a bakery, somewhere where they've actually taken the time to make
Yeah.
it.
So you mentioned how much you love red velvet cake. Is it the number one cake on the list of cakes for Liz Myers?
No, I don't know what would be though.
Carrot
Oh,
cake is the answer.
carrot cake. Oh, I do like carrot cake. So you're gonna like laugh. I hate cake. So for my birthday, I get a cookie cake. So like the flat cookies. Do you know
Yeah?
what I'm talking about? Because I do not like.
No.
I don't like. Oh, you don't know what a cookie cake is?
No. Is it
So
just a
it's not
giant
really a
cookie?
cake. Yes, exactly. It's just
Okay,
a
yeah, then
giant
I know what
cookie.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I don't get birthday cakes like I get a birthday cookie because I just don't
Gotcha.
really like cake. But if I do, I mean, red velvet is probably really close up there. I do like carrot cake as well. Um, but yeah, I would say that the cookie cake, it's a cookie cake, I think. So I can count that.
When when it comes to carrot cake, are you a fan of having raisins in your carrot cake?
No, I do like raisins, so nothing against them, but I like them plain. Like,
I I love raisins. I get that I'm 51 years old, but I've been in my old man era for the longest time. Like I love raisins. I love Raisin Bran is my favorite cereal. I
yes.
love like give me all that old man shit. Grape
Yeah,
nuts, I'm a big fan of.
I
Raisin Bran,
love it.
shredded wheat. Like I just love that stuff. I'm all in on that. All right. Favorite flavor of ice cream is
Oh, key lime.
key lime ice cream. Really?
Yeah, like a nice key lime. Yep.
I mean, I love key lime pie. And when it
Mm,
comes to pies, that's the number one pie.
I can agree
Hands down.
100%. So you
Hands
have it in
down.
some cold ice cream. It's delicious.
Interesting. I'll have to
Yeah.
check this out. Favorite candy bar or favorite candy is?
Mm, probably Snickers.
Oh, good choice.
Yep.
Pumpkin spice or apple cider?
Pumpkin spice.
Well, it was nice having you on the show.
I haven't had apple cider in forever. I will tell you
Oh,
that.
it's so good.
Maybe
Like
I'm missing out. Maybe I just don't forget or I forget.
go to Scratch Labs. I think it's scratchlabs.com and order yourself some apple cider hydration mix. It's so good.
Ooh. Oh, I'll have to try it.
Yeah. Chocolate chip cookie or oatmeal raisin cookie?
Can I have both and smash them together and eat them as one? 'Cause I like
Yes, and
both
then
of
you put
them, honestly.
yes, and then you put the stuff in the middle like a Little Debbie's oatmeal cream pie. Throw it all
Yes.
in.
100% all day long. Oh, yes. I genuinely like both of them. I don't know if I could pick one.
Yeah, I've like I told you, I'm an old man, so give me the oatmeal raisin cookie all day, every day. Sign me
Yes,
up.
yes.
Tuna, egg, or potato salad?
Mm, potato salad.
So when you have potato salad, are you putting in like little texture with some carrots and celery chopped in there, or just
Oh, yeah.
straight potato with mayonnaise?
Yep, I want some texture in there. I want some different tastes. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Last question for you. Brownies are out of the oven, sitting on the tray, cooling off. Are you the person who's going into the middle for the ooey gooey, or are you going to the edge for a little bit of crust plus the ooey gooey?
Mm, probably going straight to the center for the ooey gooey.
Yeah, you and I are not compatible with any of this stuff, which
No, we
means we can
are.
have a meal together.
100%. As I was gonna say, that means you have your side, I have my side, and we're good to go. There's no fighting at our dinner or
That's
our
right.
yeah,
Are you a
100%.
coffee drinker, by the way?
I am. I drink it like
Okay.
it's going out of style.
Yeah, same here. Love it.
Good. So we could have
So
all of the coffee and then all the snacks together.
the next time you make brownies and you decide to have coffee, here's my suggestion to you.
Okay.
Put a piece of the brownie in the middle of your coffee mug and
Mhm.
then top it with coffee flavored ice cream. And as the coffee melts, you end up with like an iced mocha. It is so damn good. It
Oh,
cannot be beat.
that sounds
Champion dessert.
delicious.
Champion
Yes.
dessert.
I'm gonna have to do that this tomorrow. Maybe I could do it tomorrow. Oh, it sounds
Yes.
good. Heck
Report
yeah.
back.
I
Tag us in the
will.
pictures.
I will.
Liz,
Awesome.
it's been a blast. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are just tuning into the live show, do not worry. It will be on the runtrymag.com website. It'll be on the Run Try Mag YouTube channel, as well as on Apple and Spotify podcasts before you know it. And we'll be sharing it all across the social media channels. And with that, the Fireside Chat 143rd episode is complete, and we are out.